Use the substitution method to find all solutions of this system. So here we go. These two equations, this is a system of equations. Okay, so we're going to plug one equation into the other, is what they're saying. Let me bring them down here. Y equals x minus 1 and x times y equals 6. Basically, I'm going to take this, y equals x minus 1, and plug it in for y in the other equation. That's what substitution means. You're going to substitute in, like a substitute teacher takes the place of a regular teacher. Y, the first equation says y is or equals x minus 1. That means y is the same as x minus 1. So in the second equation, I can replace y with x minus 1. And so that becomes x times x minus 1 equals 6. And so now I distribute, and I get x squared minus x equals 6. So now the question becomes, how do we solve an x squared equation, x squared with an equal sign? Well, step one, the first thing you need to do, whenever you see x squared show up with an equal sign, you need to know what to do. It's going to happen a lot. You've got to get a 0 on one side, get a 0, and x squared on the side, or move, yeah, I should say that better. So move x squared to the side where he'll be positive, x squared. So he already is. Right where he's at, he's positive. So I don't need to move him. I'm going to actually just jump the 6 this way. So this time we don't need to move the x squared anywhere. He already is positive right where he's sitting. When that 6 jumps over, it becomes a minus 6. Really, I just subtracted 6 from both sides, didn't I? That's all that happened, and it canceled out here. So you just jump the 6 to the other side, becomes a minus 6. And then step 2 is you can try to factor with the parentheses. Let me put this better here. So you can try to factor with parentheses, or you could use the quad, the negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I know a lot of students prefer to use the quad, but this one's actually quicker to factor if you're comfortable with factoring. I think it'll be quicker. So I'm going to factor. So we're looking for x's in the front, because those will multiply to be x squared. What two numbers multiply to be 6? What times what is 6? Well, 3 times 2. And in the middle they have to add. How can they add to be negative 1? What signs do we need? Now remember how this works. The sign in the middle goes on the bigger one. So negative 3 plus 2. The sign in the middle always goes on the bigger. So if the middle is negative, then the bigger number, 3 is bigger than 2, right? So the bigger number takes the middle sign. So negative 3 plus 2, because that makes negative 1, doesn't it? And they multiply to be negative 6. Negative times positive multiplies to be negative 6. And negative 3 plus 2 adds to be negative 1. Perfect. If you multiplied that out, it would be correct. So now, what's our next step? Each part equals 0. Each part equals 0. So in other words, I take the x minus 3 alone, that's equal to 0, or the x plus 2 alone is equal to 0. Why? Why can we do that? Why can we go from only 1 equals 0, and now suddenly we have 2 equations equal to 0? Well, that's because if you multiply two things, they're multiplied, right? There's parentheses, they're timesing, to equal 0. That means either one could be 0, right? If I said, hey, I'm thinking of a number times a number, and it's coming out 0. What does that mean? Doesn't that mean that either one of those numbers could be 0? Right? How do two things multiply to be 0? If either one of them is 0. So that means either this guy or this guy is 0, since they're multiplying to equal 0. All right, so let's solve it from there. So here I'm just going to jump the 3 over, so x is positive 3. Jump the 2 over, x is minus 2, right? They just switch signs when they jump to the other side. So we got two answers for x. X is plus 3 or x is minus 2. Now that's x. We got to go back and get y. So how are we going to do it? We're going to plug back in. So now plug in each to find y. So we'll plug in each to find y. So plug into what? Well, if you want to find y, the easiest place is going to be right up here where y was already alone. So I'm just going to grab that equation and bring it on down. So y equals, what was the equation with y equals x minus 1? Yeah, y equals x minus 1. So in both cases, I'm just going to use y equals x minus 1 and plug in the 3, plug in the minus 2, 3 minus 1, y is 2. So that is the answer, 3 for x, 2 for y, right? The x equals 3 here led to the y equals 2. So those go together. And then over here, plug in the negative 2. We get negative 3. So that's negative 2, negative 3. Didn't make that very neat. And so there we go. There's our two answers for x and y. And for x and y. There they are. We got both answers for x and y. So that's how you do it. So plug one equation into the other. You get your x squared equation, factor, set each part to 0, find both the x's, plug both of those back in to find the y.